Hi, I'm Dr. Diana Hill. Thank you so much for joining me with Your Life in Process. And if you want more, if you're interested in applying these processes to your daily life, join me at my membership, More Life in Process. At More Life in Process, you will get meditations for you to practice at home. You'll get extra bits from the episode that maybe got recorded after the fact. You're going to get PDFs and handouts, things that you can use to apply your daily practice to your life. And I can't wait to see you there. $5 a month, $50 for the year. You can go to yourlifeinprocess.com to sign up. So we'd have these different parts, and you said that you begin by identifying them, and then you start to actually dialogue with them. I worked in eating disorders as well. My early research was in eating disorders, and I ran a treatment center. And part of that treatment center, we did psychodramas. So we were doing ACT, and then we're also doing psychodramas, and that's exactly what we would do in the psychodramas, where we'd take the group members, and each group member would be a different part of the person and their experience with the binge, or their experience with restricting or with cutting. And once you start to piece them apart and you listen and talk to them, you learn from those parts.
Totally. And in the early days, because I learned a little bit of Gestalt therapy in grad school, I was doing the open chair stuff. I was doing it psychodramatically. And I'd have, because I was learning like you did with your clients, about 5 and 6 different parts. So I'd have all kinds of chairs and clients hopping all over the room as they did the dialogues. And then one guy said, I don't have to jump around to do this. I can just sit here and do it. So since that time, most people just sit in the chair and they can notice them and have these internal interactions. But there is still a version of IFS that people are doing psychodramatically too.
So what are we doing in there when we're having these conversations with our parts? Why would we even want to do that in the first place?
Yes,
we don't like these parts.
No, it's a dangerous neighborhood, and I don't want to go in there, right? Yeah. Well, that's fortunately or unfortunately, that's the attitude most of us have about not wanting to go certain places inside. And we spend a lot of time and energy trying to avoid those places, not feel what we had to feel back in the traumas. And so we tend to then exile the parts of us that are still stuck in those places and carrying those feelings we don't want to feel again. They become what we call exiles. And once you get a lot of those parts, you have this big inner basement full of pain and terror and worthlessness that you never want to feel again. Then a lot of other parts are forced out of their naturally valuable states to become protectors to keep all that contained. And those are the parts you're speaking about when you say, why would I even want to think about going there? And those parts manage your life so that those exiles never get triggered. And so you can function. So they might focus on making you look perfect so people don't reject you, or achieve a lot so you get accolades to counter the worthlessness, or take care of everybody so that they depend on you, but this part doesn't let you take care of yourself, or the critics who are either trying to make you perfect or are trying to tear you down so that you don't get hurt, you don't show yourself, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of what we call manager protectors that are trying to manage, it's known as the ego in other circles. Just they're trying their best to keep you safe and to keep these exiles contained. Doesn't always work. So if you do get triggered and some of those flames of exile emotion come floating out, or rushing out, there's another set of parts who have to go into action immediately to get you away. And so, you work with eating disorders. So that would be the binge maybe, or even the anorexic part sometimes. But, they're trying to get you higher than the flames, or they're trying to distract you till they burn themselves out. And we call those firefighters. So that's the map to the territory. It's pretty simple. Exiles are these young, vulnerable parts that carry these burdens we never want to feel again, so they lock them up. And then to keep them contained and protected, we have managers and firefighters, both of which are under the umbrella of protectors. And so most of us are dominated by some version. The diagnosis that people carry is really just a description of the cluster of protectors that run the person's life. And so our approach is to honor all those parts for their service and how much they've tried, even though it backfires a lot of times, or they're screwing up your life in a lot of ways. They're all trying their best. They're all pretty young, and they're like parentified inner children. They just think they've got to do this or you're going to die a lot of the time.
Yeah, it was really helpful in one of the exercises to map it out on a piece of paper and see all the parts and see how it is. I guess that's part of the systems approach is we create maps of things and then arrows. This relates to this in this way, and maybe it's bi-directional. And for me to see my different parts, because some of these parts are pretty divergent, that, and that is the nature. And something like bulimia is such a good example of that, because there's the restrictor and the binger, and they coexist within, and they're battling each other.
That's right.
Right.
Totally.
And one is trying to manage the other, and one is trying to get free from the other. Right. And I have my own history of bulimia. And I remember early on, one of my really wise therapists said to me is that you'll have bulimia in your behaviors with food, but you'll also see bulimia in your behaviors with life.
It's true.
And the ways in which you either are like tearing everything apart, gobbling everything up, or you're restricting yourself in your life. And those parts of you will be in battling each other until you figure this out. Like start to listen to them. And what is the restrictor wanting? And then what is the binger wanting? And really listen that there's some wisdom in there.
And see if they can come together and figure out a way to coexist better, so they don't have to battle for your soul all the time. And IFS, that's one aspect of IFS, is to find the polarized parts and connect with each of them, value each of them, just like you would polarized family members, and then bring them together with you as their therapist so they can dialogue about how they can do this differently inside.
So how do you do that? How do you get there?
You want to do it?
Sure. I don't know if I want to, but I'm willing to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to work with those two parts you mentioned? I mean, it sounds like you don't.
Yeah. But not necessarily in relationship to food, but just into life. The binger and the restrictor are full on parts of me still. Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay. Which of those two do you want to start with?
Well, I find the restrictor more attractive. She's easier. I don't like my binger.
Maybe we should start with the binger.
Oh, geez. Okay, good.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, Dinah. So focus on that impulse and find it in your body or around your body. Where do you find it?
I find it like right at my clavicle, like the lower part of my throat.
Okay. And as you notice it there, how do you feel toward it? You said you don't like it, but
I feel scared of it, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scared of its power to take over and make you binge. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of things. Yeah. So it makes sense. You'd be afraid of it. But let's just for a minute now, let's see if the part that's so afraid of it will give us the space to just get to know it and maybe help it, so it didn't have to do this job so much. Just see if that's possible for you to get curious toward it instead of afraid of it.
To give my binger some space?
No, to get the part who's afraid of the binger to give us some space to get to know the binger.
I don't know. That part it's got a good lockdown on the binger. Maybe that's why it's even in that contained in that throat area. Like,
so it's afraid if it lightens up at all, the binger's going to take over. Is that right?
Yeah, because it has.
It has in the past.
Yeah.
So all that makes sense, and we're not going to do it without this fear part's permission.
Mm-hmm.
But let it know that I'm good at this, and I don't have these parts take over again. We actually do this so the binger can consider a different role inside. And then this fear part wouldn't have to work so hard all the time to contain it. But we're not going to do it without its permission.
Yeah. Well, it likes that. It likes feeling like it's with an experienced ally, like that someone else is going to help it, because it's pretty.
It's tired, right?
Yeah, it's tired of this. It's worn.
Yeah. So we get that, and we appreciate how hard this worked to keep you from binging, and this is a different way to handle that. So, is it willing to give this a try for a minute?
Yeah.
All right. So as it recedes a bit, how do you feel toward the binger now?
I just notice its energy. I feel. I just feel it's really, really powerful and destructive. And so, like, if the fear is stepped aside, maybe it's a bit of like, almost like awe.
Huh? Yeah. So we're going to ask the one who's in awe of it also to give us some space. We just want to get to know it. And it's hard to do that if you're in awe of it.
Yeah.
Or if you just see it as destructive also. So
yeah,
let's get all those parts to let you just open your mind to it a little bit.
Okay. That's an easier one to step aside.
Okay, good. So how do you feel toward it now?
I'm just noticing it.
Yeah, good. Do you feel open to getting to know it now?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll settle for that. So again, focus on it and ask what it wants you to know about itself. And don't think of the answer. Just wait and see what comes back to you.
Okay. Do you want to know what it said?
Uh-huh.
It said, I'm wild and I'm free and I clear the path.
And what does it mean by clear the path? For what?
To get what you want.
Oh, okay.
Like, so it's like it gets me what I want.
And that's true or not?
Not really. No. I mean, I think it thinks that. I mean, it wants, I guess maybe what I want is some freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom of
expression. So let it know.
Yeah.
Let it know it probably chafes at all the constrictions from the other part.
Mm-hmm.
And it wants you to be more free.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense. And just see how it reacts to being heard that way.
I don't know. It doesn't really believe it that I think that.
Well, it's probably because these other parts are still hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
So there are parts of you that don't trust what it's saying right now.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I still see it as like a big destroyer of my life.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So we really need all those parts to see it that way, to give us some space to get to know it in an entirely different way. Because just remind them, their way has sort of worked, but it requires huge amounts of energy. Mm-hmm. And what if it were true? What if this binging part isn't what they thought? What if it isn't a big destroyer, but it actually is trying to get something for you?
Well, that would be relieving.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I kind of promise that's true. If they give us a break, if they'll give us the space, we can discover that.
Okay.
So go back to the binger
Mm-hmm.
and tell me how you're feeling toward it now.
I think I am more curious about her because I think there's elements of her that are kind of cool in that she's rebelled
Yeah.
and she's a bit of a wild woman. And so I like that. I
So
feel
let her
like I
know
like
that.
that aspect. Yeah.
Let her know that much and see how she reacts now.
I think she likes that. She thinks yeah, she likes that.
And then ask her what she's afraid would happen if she didn't keep trying to take over this way.
Oh, yeah. She she's very clear that I am rigid and controlling, and if she weren't here, I would be starving myself and
Mm-hmm.
exercising all day and uh, in some constrained job that is boring
Mm-hmm.
and rigid with my kids.
Okay.
Yeah, she's definitely feels like she's liberating me.
So is there some truth to that, Diane?
Yes.
So let her know you can see that. But also let her know that that's not who you are. That's the restrictive part who's been dominating. But you're the person who's getting to know it now. And you can work with that restrictor part too, so it's not so heavy-handed. And see how this one's reacting to hearing that.
She likes, I think she likes to know that I'm not the restrictor part. Like she's,
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah.
she's more open to me if I'm not the restrictor part.
Yeah, you've been so blended with that restrictor part that that's all she's known. But it's important she see that you're not it. It's just another part.
Mm-hmm.
And ask her if we could go to the restrictor and get it to lighten up some, and so that there was more space for this kind of freedom and creativity and, you know, all of that. Would the binge be able to lighten up too?
Yeah, I mean, I think she says, I, the sense that I have is she just wants to be colorful and move fluidly through life. And
That's right.
when she feels restricted is when she starts to battle by
That's
blowing
right.
things up. Yeah.
Yeah, she'll get more and more extreme, and she will destroy your life if it comes to that. That's not who she is.
Yeah.
So are you getting that, Diana?
Yeah. It makes me feel very sad.
Yeah, yeah, good. So let her know you're sorry you've been so hard on her, and that you haven't taken the time to get to know her this way. And see how she reacts.
She actually, I think she feels forgiving because she does see that I have gotten to know her more
Good.
over time. And I do things to let her in and be
Okay.
expressive, there is a bit of trust
Okay,
there.
good. So you've changed and earned her trust more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great to hear. So ask her now if she's willing to let us go to the restrictor part and get to know it and help it get to know her better.
Yeah, no, that's fine. She's like, go there, go deal with the
Okay.
restrictor.
Okay.
This isn't her problem. Yeah.
So you ready?
Yeah.
So where do you find that one in your body, around your body?
My forehead between my eyebrows, like tightness,
Hmm.
tension,
Yep.
focused.
That's often where they show up. And how do you feel toward it as you notice it?
Um, I get it. Like I feel I don't feel scared of it. I feel more like, oh yeah, you've been keeping stuff together, and
Yeah. So
I
you
get why
can
you're here. Yeah.
appreciate it for that.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of love bomb it with appreciation for a while, for working so hard to try and keep it all together, and see how it reacts to that.
It likes to feel appreciated. It knows it does keep everything together.
Yeah. But ask if it was listening to the conversation you had with the binging part.
Mm-hmm.
And so how does it react to your getting to know that binging part better?
Well, it my restrictor likes the binging part when it's in contained, when it talks about like it won't destroy my life. So it likes that I'm connecting with that part of it. But it's almost like the binging part has parts, like the
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
That's
the
true.
part that gets out of control and that blows up my life or does like stupid impulsive things and overschedules or it puts too much on my plate, or it feels really chaotic.
Yeah.
And the restrictor's like, I'm here. It's here to contain that impulsive, disorganized chaos.
Yeah. So let it know we get that.
Yeah.
And was it listening when the binger was saying it gets extreme because when it gets shut down more and more, that's when it goes to the destructive stuff. So basically the restrictor has a role in how extreme the binger is. Can it get that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it can see that the more it puts it under lockdown, the more the binger pushes back, and knows that. I mean, has known that with food, right? But knows that in other domains as well.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Yeah.
So now ask the restrictor if it would be willing to have a direct conversation with the binger, with you there, to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, if you're there too, it says.
Yeah, I'll be right there.
All of us.
All of us
witness.
will be there. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So Diana, bring them both together and tell me when they're, a comfortable distance apart.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just visually, they're very different, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Like the binger is this like wild, colorful, tie-dye kind of moving energy blob. And then the restrictor is this like gray, thin line.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see. So like when I'm pulling them together, I see both of them visually. I could almost paint them very different.
I love that. So now that they are kind of together, then you're going to be their therapist, like I said, and your job is mainly to make sure they don't get extreme with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the question I'll have you start with is, ask them both what they have in common.
Yeah, they said they're both here to help.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And let them know that their polarizations and fights have caused trouble, and we're here now to see if they can work out a different relationship with each other. And just see if either of them have ideas about that.
Well, the binger has a lot more ideas than the restrictor. She's kind of dominating here. But she says that if you just let me be expressive and a little wild and a little on the edge sometimes, I won't I won't go crazy on you, but I can help you open up your life more to have it be a vibrant life and a full life. And you
Yeah.
don't have to keep me so contained, because
Yeah.
I actually really want that for you. Like, I want you to
Yeah.
feel the vibrancy of being alive. And I just see you as so shut down.
That's beautiful. So how about the restrictor? How does it react to that?
She says, I don't know, she wants that too, but she also sees the importance and value of being organized, and sometimes not speaking up and not saying something, like sometimes being quiet, and the value of being really sort of dedicated and effortful to difficult tasks and staying on tasks for the long run, and persistence. And, she's kind of proud of those things that she brings, and sees that that is how I've gotten to where I've gotten, is some of
Yeah.
that.
So, so how does the binger respond to that?
She agrees.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah.
Yeah. So just stay with us because they're doing great. So just see if there's a way they can both have what they want, if they could share time somehow.
Well, it's interesting because a binger is like, I kind of like that you've done this for me, because it actually gives me more privilege to be free.
Yeah.
If I have a PhD, then I can do things that are a little bit wild, and it's like I can bank on that. Some of the
That's right.
security that you've created. So
That's right.
yeah.
And how does the restrictor react to that?
She likes that, being
Yeah.
appreciated for her hard work.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So are they willing to keep meeting with you this way to try and work all this out?
Yeah, I think they feel a little safer around each other, like a
Mhm.
little more appreciated by each other, and like maybe there could be some collaboration
That's right.
here to work towards some common goals.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if it feels genuine, Diana, then let them know you'll keep working with them this way.
Okay. I let them know.
Okay. Does that feel complete for this round?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for doing that. It was actually really, really accurate and great demo of what I talk about. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it on lots of levels. I feel like I got to a different, I've been working with these parts in different ways for so many years. But there was a
But
way in which you led me through it. The first part of getting the stuff out of the way was super helpful. Like that,
yeah.
clearing out all the
Mhm.
folks that are coming in to interfere with
Yeah.
me contacting my binger, because it just felt scary to contact her. That was really helpful. And then bringing them together visually for me was really vibrant and intense to see the two of them
Mhm.
together. And it felt very organic. I was very much in it. I was not
Yeah.
I was not in therapist mode. I was just letting
No, you
myself be a
were.
client there.
You were
It's good.
totally a client. So again, I so appreciate it. So that's an example, a good, really good example of how this works. And if we have gone further, it may be that both of them protect some other part that I would call an exile
Yeah.
that needs to be healed and taken out of where it's stuck in the past before they can both totally become less extreme. So we would get curious about that and ask them if they do indeed protect vulnerable parts, and
Yeah.
negotiate permission to go to those parts.
I could sense that when you said, do they have something in common? I was like, to help me. And then the next step is like, to help you with what?
Right, exactly.
That which has been exiled.
That's
Yeah.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
the step we didn't take because
Yeah.
this context. But
Yeah. Exactly. I have so many different questions. One is, you can do this with a therapist, and in No Bad Parts, you're also doing this on your own. Like, so how does that work for somebody to be able to do this work with themselves? What are you seeing when people do the work on their own?
It varies a lot. There are people who can like listen to me do a meditation and do that much, but they're loath to do it really totally on their own, to keep it going. And there are other people that do a huge piece of work just by themselves. So a lot of it just depends on how much their protectors trust it's safe to do it. Or if they, there are a couple times you said, well, I'll do it because you're here.
Yeah.
So that's true of me. I can do only so much unless I have a safe person with me. So it just varies a lot.
So are you doing this yourself? Like, is this a practice you do on a regular basis to go and explore your parts and have conversations amongst them? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it becomes a life practice. So, basically every morning while I'm in bed, usually I'll just follow up with the parts I've been working with and check with the whole system to see if anybody needs attention during the day. I might even talk about what I'm going to be doing during the day and ask them to trust me to handle all this stuff, which has taken a lot of time because I had parts that really thought, yeah, you're okay, but we have to handle this, Like if I'm doing a podcast like this, there was the sort of intellectual guy who can sound really cool would want to take over, and you would have a very different experience than me. And now that guy just says, no, I trust you. You can do this. And so I can be much more open-hearted. As I was noticing what happened when this other person popped out that we call self, the capital S, who was there. I mean, your self was very present with each of your parts. It took a while to get you to unblend, especially with the binging part, because you had so many parts that thought it was dangerous, could destroy your life. Had this it's like a kid in a family who gets scapegoated, and everybody sees that kid as really the bad one. And as we got everybody to open space, suddenly you saw it entirely differently, and you were open to getting to know it. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I call self. So curiosity is one of those big C words, as is confidence and calm and compassion. And you suddenly had a lot of compassion for it, actually. There was a time when you were crying because you had locked it up so much. And you would also be creative in how you worked with it rather than so rigid. And you would have the courage to go to places with it or to give it a little more space. And you would feel connected to it. So that's another C word. And you would see it more clearly. You wouldn't see it as this bad thing, but you started to see how creative it is and how colorful it is. So those are what I call the 8 C's of self-leadership. So once I got you in that place, I kind of knew everything was going to go well, because people know how to do this when they get to self. They know how to heal inside. And you did. You knew how to relate to each of them in an honoring way and how to help them come and talk to each other. So I can't remember the original question we were talking about, but
doesn't matter. You got to a good answer. I feel like the good nature, like the inherent good nature that exists, was something that resonated with me when I was reading No Bad Parts, because it just reminds me a lot of one of the reasons why I've been attracted to Thich Nhat Hanh's work for so long around your true nature. I mean, we'd sing songs around your true nature and do meditations around your true nature, that your true nature is good and available all the time. And you don't have to work to develop it. It's just there. And I really appreciated that from you, because so much of psychology is not like that. So much of psychology is like, and I get caught up in that too. Like, we need to practice to get better at things. But some things we are just there. We don't even have to practice. They're just available.
That's what we found when we got hearts to open space, suddenly you had compassion for this part. It's just there. You didn't have to build up the muscle of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
You just already had it. We just uncovered it. So this is a model of what we call constraint releasing versus practice of build up and create.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's very accurate. And so this self and how to access it, how to help people heal themselves and become the primary caretaker to their own parts is the centerpiece of IFS. It's the big deal about IFS.
Mm.
And the sort of absolute knowledge and trust that it's in everybody, it can't be damaged. It's just beneath the surface of these parts. So that in the open space, it's right there. You don't have to meditate 20 years to get to it.
Yeah.
And it knows how to heal. It knows how to heal internally. It knows how to heal externally.
Yeah.
That's the big deal.
So two things come to mind as you're saying that. One is that I just interviewed a good friend of mine whose father committed suicide. And she talks about the day before he committed suicide, spending time with him and seeing him so vulnerable. She was able to just completely feel compassion for him. It's like she'd been working so hard to forgive her father for mania for so long. And then it just all dropped instantly. And it was there, it was available. It's like she didn't have to work for it. So it's like a family system where when we can see the beauty of the vulnerability of maybe one of our inner parts or family members, compassion comes.
Yeah.
But then the other thing was just in reading through, you mentioned all these different other philosophies. You talk about Christianity, you talk about Buddhism, but one of the names that popped up for me was Locke Kelly, because I interviewed him a while ago on, effortless mindfulness is his whole shtick. And it feels like that too. It's like the effortlessness of it to be able to expand into the self.
Yeah, Locke is an IFS person. He studied IFS, and he has a way of accessing self more quickly by just having you shift your focus from up here down to your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So lots of overlap with other approaches that ultimately it feels like a spiritual
exactly.
approach.
It's become very, very spiritual. And I just did a 2-day workshop this weekend with a woman named Lissa Rankin about spiritual bypass and how IFS is an antidote for that, because so many spiritual traditions have very valid practices for getting you high, for getting you above your exiles so that you can feel the numinous, you can feel the non-dual, and all the bliss that comes with that. And then people get addicted to the practice because it keeps them away from all that pain. But so it's good to sense that, to feel the big self. But with what we're trying to do is now bring that to your parts. Don't use it to get away from them. And that's what you just did. You brought a lot of those great qualities to your parts so that they could feel and trust you to help them.
Mm-hmm. I know we don't have to practice it, but it did feel like because I've done this with clients, it felt easier in some way. I think if you had done this with me 20 years ago when I was knee deep in bulimia, it wouldn't necessarily have felt so easy to access that self.
It's very true. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. A lot of the work you've done to get your parts to let you open your heart to people and be with them in that state, they see that that's possible, and that makes it easier for them to open space relative to each other.
Yeah. So the self, the self is also, it's had some qualities to it. I mean, you mentioned those 8 qualities, but it also had some qualities to it that I was trying to maybe I shouldn't be wrapping my head around it because I experienced it, but I am still trying to wrap my head around it, which is, it almost reminds me more of no self in Buddhism than it does ego self. Yeah. And it's not the observer self, but it's more the spacious, loving awareness, like Jack Kornfield, loving awareness self.
Yeah.
But even just this word self trips me up, right?
I know. Yeah. Buddhists are allergic to the word.
Yeah.
But for me, and there was a Buddhist scholar who wrote a paper on this, that self in IFS is the same as no self in Buddhism, because what they really mean is no parts. So as you get parts to open space and you enter that very spacious, sort of grounded, open-hearted place, that's what they call no self, but I call it self for various reasons, because that's what clients called it when we got there. They would say, that's me, that's not my parts. So I'd say, oh, that's yourself, okay. But it's really exactly what Buddhists call no self, although from my point of view, too many Buddhist traditions keep you in that passive state of a witness rather than an active healing, going to the parts and loving them and helping them. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh aside, I mean, he does that, but most Buddhist practices are all about the mindfulness and because they don't see these as parts, they see them as ephemeral thoughts and emotions. Yeah. So why would you go and deal with that? If that's the ego, you don't want to, you know, they have a way of undervaluing your inner system that way.
Yeah. Well, I would say, the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh is very, maybe it's unique and different in that engaged Buddhism way. And himself being an exile, himself being a refugee from his own land, I think he learned a lot about that, of how to find a home when you aren't home. Yeah. And then the many different parts. I mean, his poem of "Call Me by my many names."
My true names.
Yeah, my true names is very much that. Like, I'm the mayfly and I'm the bird eating the mayfly, right? These different parts. So Brother Phapu was one of his attendants. And I got to know Brother Phapu a little bit by being in his monastery, but then I interviewed him. And one of the questions that I brought to him was from my son. And my son asked, "What do I do when I'm lonely at night?" And his response was, "Oh, will you say, 'Hello, loneliness'?
Yeah.
I'm here for you."
Yeah, that's
what
exactly
do you need,
right.
Loneliness?
That's right.
And I'm like, that's kind of parts work.
That's exactly
reading
what
it as it's the same. It's similar. Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah. This is a little more concrete. You can be in your head and say, "Oh, okay, loneliness." But when you actually find it in your body and you actually get close to it, it's a little different.
Yeah. It's good. It's good stuff. I want to learn more. Thank you for the introduction and the experience of it. Makes me want to do more of it. Right. So I encourage folks to, the No Bad Parts is your book. I know you have a ton of trainings. You have trainings through PESI. You have lots of ways that therapists can learn this, but then also the general public can learn it. Where do you want to direct people that are intrigued and curious about your work too?
So we have the good problem of being incredibly popular right now. So we have like 20,000 people wanting to get into the trainings. So, and we're rapidly expanding to try and accommodate. But in the meantime, because there's a lottery system and people are waiting sometimes years, that book is helpful. Sounds True just released a couple other books, an intro to IFS, and also a book called You're the One You've Been Waiting For.
Ooh. Nice title.
It is about relationships. It's about how you hook up with your partner and all the protectors that get involved, and how to, do the U-turn in your focus and heal these parts. Anyway, so those are good starting points. And then on our website, we have what's called the Online Circle program, where you don't have to apply. You just can buy into it, and it's mostly video, but there's live Q&A also. So a lot of people get the basics from that. The big advantage to the trainings is you get a lot of supervised practice from somebody who knows the model well. So that's what's missing in the Online Circle program.
Right. The experiential practice is where you get to your, like, because there were so many dead ends I probably offered you that a therapist would dead end at, and then you knew how to work around it. You're like water. You're like, oh, that's not a dead end. That's I think you say a trailhead.
It's a trailhead.
Yeah.
It's just a part. It's just a part.
Yeah. So I'm sure that an experienced internal family systems therapist could take our little dialogue and pick apart all the excellent ways in which you were very skillful. at
Thank you.
working with me. So yay. Well, I got to experience it personally. What a treasure. What a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for
Well, I
that.
appreciate you being such a good sport with your audience. You know, these people all revere you, and so it's a bit of a risk to show what's in there.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you taking that risk, and I've had a delightful time with you.
It's been wonderful.
I didn't know what to expect given how attached you are to ACT. So.
I'm increasingly less attached these days,
Okay.
and that's why I'm having conversations with people like you.
Oh, good.
I'm practicing non-attachment, noticing my attachment. But yes, it is the qualities of my binger self that can make me be a little bit more wild.
Wild, yes.
So
we love that part. Yeah.
It's good. Thank you, Dr. Schwartz. Appreciate the hour with you. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I hope that this benefits many.
Well, it's really been a delight, Diana. I really appreciate it.